Our virtual tabletop is Roll20. Our models are provided by Hero Forge. Our overlay is provided by OBS. Our assets have been provided by Pixabay, and our music is provided by bensound.com. Orphea's Codex, April 15th, 3200. The crew of the Proxima Icarus has been successful, and my codex is safe. An alliance between the crew, the planetary government, and myself have been made, and for the first time since the governor ascended and began his assault, I am relieved. Now the crew are assembled, and I have an offer to provide them. All right, so I believe that Gerard, this is Gerard's first arrival at the Orpheus Codex, right? Or did you? No, they came in late last time, right?
All right.
Okay, so it's a somewhat different reception as you arrive. Nico's still flying the shuttle, but there's not as much concern for secrecy. Like by the time you have set the shuttle down, there are dinosaurs awaiting to serve as guides towards the still quite concealed entrance to the Codex. You're still taken down by the Gigantosaur to the very top level.
Just want to see one
Llamas?
velociraptor with a trumpet.
Llamas? Llamas?
Red panda.
Llamas and red pandas.
Orphea is there as before, once again, a kind of holographic projection that looks like a Greek goddess. And she smiles at the arrival of Booker and kind of, once again bids him pass the sort of array where she can detect everybody's genetics and everything. And touches his shoulder after he's passed through and says, "It seems to be accelerating. We do not have much time for you."
Great, let's get to it then.
She says, since you were all last here, I have had the opportunity to look over each of your unique matrices, and I believe that I have some optimizations for all of you. I cannot promise that you will be exactly as you are now, only better. But I can promise that my knowledge is vast, and I have carefully considered each of you.
Optimizations.
This is things like long life, faster healing. For you in particular, the processes which govern your ability to moderate the strain of your psychic abilities could be optimized.
But Gerard hasn't been down here yet, right?
But he did come in at the second half of the last adventure, so he had passed through at that time.
Okay, I was just gonna have Michael be like, Gerard, this is Orphea. Orphea, this is Gerard. Hi, she looks at things, she knows stuff. If that's not needed, that's not needed.
No, that's still needed because I don't remember meeting Orpheus. So, what is the source of these optimizations?
This is my own understanding and the Codex itself, which contains genetic information on every species on Earth since it has been recovered. Any genetic information ever recovered by mankind has eventually made its way into my Codex, as well as the planets of all of the sectors as well as the species of every planet in this sector.
So this is a genetic rewrite then.
For me,
I am
it's
more
genetic
careful than
rewrite.
that.
I think for you, it's closer to genetic facelift.
It will be more than cosmetic, she says, but I can promise that you will retain the essence of who you are. She says much of the process involves the translation of RNA, which is the response to stimuli that has helped to shape you. She says, which will be inserted directly into the matrix of your new self. She says, and at the end, she says, a conscious transference.
What are potential side effects?
She says, as with all medical processes, there are many things which could potentially go wrong. And she kind of like provides a list. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the things that you're aware of, they're basically the kind of stuff that goes wrong if like retroviral genetic engineering goes badly. Does that make sense? Usually that involves like a reaction to the process or a reaction to the retrovirus itself. But is usually mitigated by careful time and attention and tailoring to a specific genetic code. So is most likely to be reduced. She's talking about extreme outside risks level of these kind of things could happen, like 1 in 10,000 or much higher.
Yes, but as a physician, I need to know these risks to weigh them against the benefits.
She says, some of the risks, she says, it will be needed for you to keep an eye for. She says they mostly have to do with certain psychological disassociation, which can rise afterwards if someone feels too distinct from their new body. She says, therefore, she says, I have carefully selected choices, she says, which will keep the majority of the physique and self intact. She says, the face you see in the mirror will still be yours.
And what kind of time frame are we looking at this? Since, as you mentioned, it requires very acute attention during the process.
She says, you will be unconscious and in my care for 2 weeks.
Gerard, I don't know about you or Bite or Maiko, but I don't really get an option in this. It's either this or I die.
I understand, Booker, but I need to know all the pros and cons. For you, the risk versus reward factor is lower than it would be for the rest of us. This is something that is necessary for you, but for...
No, I understand. I'm more meaning I trust this. I trust Orphea. I don't believe she'd have any of our worst interests at heart.
There is nothing to say that you must undergo this process at the exact same time. If Booker is placed in suspension and you wish to oversee him during that time and monitor the process, you are welcome to stay and make a decision for yourself then.
Yes. I want to watch over Booker while he does the thing. Booker, I'll keep an eye on you.
Thanks, Maiko.
Do we have...
want to be able to help if need be.
I heard some of that. My ear may have just suddenly disappeared for a moment, but I'm glad for any assistance that you want to offer.
Captain, do we have anything pressing right now that we need to be concerned about?
Unless Booker is incorrect, this is the only pressing thing he has to be concerned about. Everything else is more just letting the planet have a little bit of time to rest, almost, and deal with its new leadership.
Nothing that needs to be monitored for, say, 2 weeks.
No, for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, the chaos will still be fairly chaotic. And the bringing of new everything will just take some time to settle before everything really manages to start up again. I'm not explaining this in a very charismatic, understandable sort of way.
The chaos will wait 2 weeks.
I understand exactly what it is. I just want to make sure that we have time to do this slowly and monitored.
Yes.
While this is necessary for you, you are literally becoming a test subject for this process.
I understand. And I've made my condition of keeping the arm, and he just lifts his metal arm as part of it. It was made by my friend Booster. Don't really want to get rid of it.
And is this possible, Orpheus?
This is already an understanding.
Aw,
It
it's
will
a
be
sentimental
incorporated.
arm.
It is a sentimental arm. I might change the color, but that's about it.
Racing
It used to be
red.
bright red.
Mm-hmm.
My inquiry isn't whether or not you understand the request, but is the request possible?
The arm will be transitioned to his new body, and it is possible. I am going to slightly improve the receptivity of his nervous system to interacting with the arm. It was originally used as a control measure, says I am disabling that portion of it.
Yeah, while that's happening, I'd actually like Bite to go through the software to see if there's anything odd about it.
Can do.
And Maiko, if you can also make sure that the battery isn't going to be poisoning the body afterwards, that would also be very good. Because that's a little bit of what's happening now.
I would be happy to.
I will fabricate the tools for your work.
And definitely, like, somewhere along this way, like, Maiko also probably took Orphea aside, because the hair that she has is, like, not her natural hair color. So she's probably, like, took Orphea aside and was like, can you just not change my hair?
Orphea kind of smiles and she says, I had something in mind for you, actually.
Okay.
She says, will you trust me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she just kind of smiles and she says, very well. She says, for those who would like to provide mental comfort to Booker while he goes through this transition, she says, there will be crowns, she says, which you can wear to interact with him while he is in stasis. She says, for those who would like to physically monitor him, she says, by the necessary stations. And, you know, like, the things sort of begin just, like, appearing out of the ground. Like, literally, there's, like, a medical station that is going to, like, monitor all of his vitals for Sherrod that just sort of, like, lifts up and out of the ground. Another station rises that has... Bite recognizes them. They used to be, like, a way that you would enter a virtual environment. They were just, like, a crown that you put on your head, and it was...
Oculus. Oculus headsets.
Except with no eyes or, like, it's just literally direct, like, cerebral connection. So.
You literally just have a little USB port right here at the back of your neck. Just...
That was the other popular version. The crown one was considered the less surgically invasive.
It's the next model, the Oculus Cerebellum or something like that.
So,
the Oculus frontal lobe.
Orpheus has Booker lay down on the table and kind of fits him with the crown as well. From there, it's an odd transition because, like, from your perspective, you just appear in, like, Athens, Greek. Does that make sense? Like, you've kind of read stories, you know what I'm saying? And it's definitely sort of an idealized version of it in that everything's clean and all the columns are colorful, whatnot. And there's sort of like...
no one's throwing their poop out onto the street, you know, stuff like that.
Technology is sort of like integrated with everything, but it's definitely built as like a city where you can like occupy yourself and you can go to the gymnasium and wrestle and, you know, however you choose to sort of pass your time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Orphea is sort of always there. She's not always like kind of intruding on you, but like if you want to find her, literally it's just sort of like a matter of like looking around and then you're like, oh, there she is. But she's
I was imagining a Good Place version of Janet. Just, Orphea? Ooh, yes?
Not quite, because the idea of it is that it's supposed to mimic reality as closely as possible. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get it.
To the point where, like, when you're doing training and stuff like that, like the big burly gladiator types, you know, who very much seem Spartan, you know, you very much feel like kicked the shit out of when you've had a good training session and whatnot.
That was good. Round two.
Yeah, You're like, I can go all year.
Or sorry, I mean round 5.
Got it.
Look, they're not always good jokes. Just
Gerard, from your perspective, it's like hardcore lessons in genetic engineering, like master's, doctorate level, you know what I'm saying? Like well above that, but it's like Orpheus is also making it accessible. Does that make sense? Like down to the point where you can trace through his genetic code and see every single change that's been made. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. And basically, in essence, reading his genetic code is a form of digitalized basic.
Mm-hmm. And like there's footnotes and everything so that every time there's a change you can be like, well, why is this change? And it's like this prevents, you know, this particular form of genetic disease from occurring, et cetera, or just this increases reaction time slightly. And the reasons and purposes, the downfalls and the advantages, there's a lot of things which are just mitigating the downfalls of other genetic choices that have been made. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically creating fail safes for potential mutations or errors.
Yep.
That is a generic term. Is it possible during this process to copy the detailed information into my data pad?
Yes.
Then I'll be doing so. I'll be keeping a full record and I'll be monitoring. Should Byte and Michael, would you go through this process? I will be doing the same.
I'm also during the downtime, she can fabricate absolutely anything in the equipment section that is related to like doctoring. Does that make sense? Whether it's Lazarus patches or whatnot. I'm gonna say that you can put 50,000 creds worth of medical equipment onto the ship. That is just things that Orpheus like, here you go.
I am making a list as we speak.
And some of it, if you wanted to come from like, you know, the pollen of some rare flower or whatnot, instead of the normal way it's described, go wild. You also get the kind of firsthand view of like what's actually happening insofar as like Booker's body is at once being built and decaying at the same time. Does that make sense? There's a new body that is being like literally constructed. And at the same time as the RNA and useful information about his experiences and whatnot is extracted from his old body, portions of it are literally kind of like molting away.
Basically being broken down as it's being built up.
Mm-hmm. It very much gives you the most sense of like, we're not just like making a clone of Booker and killing the old one. Like there's literally like a transference. Does that make sense?
Oh, it definitely does.
I don't know how much Byte and Micah would like to be privy to that process or would like to out of sight, out of mind. Or if they just want to go into the world that has been created for Booker to keep Booker company.
I'm just imagining there's a nice privacy bar over where Booker's
bits.
thesaurus? No, dictionary.
I totally came back. Oh my god, what did I miss?
Booker just has a nice little bar right covering his dictionary, you know, just making sure that it all stays PG-13, all that stuff.
Maiko is absolutely like, I don't know, like, what does he do in his downtime? Like, if he plays like cards or chess or whatever, she's like down with that, and if not, she'll read a story to him or just whatever.
Booker will definitely play some chess with you, and will also be, even though it's a virtual body, he's still going to be working out because he's just used to it. So at some point he'll go, okay, you're reading a story, I need some extra weight, sit on the shoulder blades, I'm gonna do push-ups.
And Orphe actually seems to encourage that quite a bit, that kind of interaction. Does that make sense? Because it apparently helps to like modulate the nerves and reaction time and whatnot in the new body. to have that kind of thing going on mentally.
Great.
After the 2 weeks goes with frequent communications from elsewhere on the planet. Like you get frequent communications from Jemay.
Some nice lingerie pics. Sorry.
For the most part, they're very much just sort of giving some updates on how things are going. The most immediate concern is a lot of appeasement of the different factions. There were many different cells, and the leaders of those cells each had different things that they considered to be high priorities for the new government in the wake of the overthrow. So the revolution has quite a few people who are, very aboard, and others who are dragging their feet, and others who are intent on punishing the nobles and those who had power, and others who see the dangers of over punishing them and how that's going to immediately lead to another conflict. So there's a lot of it that you can tell that she's writing mostly to sort of write out her thoughts. Does that make sense? Happy to have input, happy to have response, but it seems to be something where your communication that she trusts, that she can keep in confidence. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And sort of like sound out her reasoning, and also have somebody just go, that might not be as great an idea as you think.
Yeah, he'll do what he can, while at the same time, he'll visit Booker. He'll make sure, basically, to give him like a report of what's going on.
Booker's going to be very, very happy to take the reports and go, yes, I'm still important, even when I'm suspended in a matrix of realities.
You're still the captain.
I know. It's odd to. It feels good to still be needed.
I don't know why that would change, but
that's so sweet.
Well, I'm not always. Thanks, Maiko, I guess. This looks over while he's still doing push-ups and reading the report. It's just, not always do I feel. I don't always feel like I can be as useful as I'd like to be. You guys are very, very good at what you do, and a lot of what I do is different. So I just don't feel like I can be as useful when you're doing things at the computer, or mechanically engineering things, or healing the sick. Just, I like being useful.
You're like our phrasebook. Have you ever used like a phrasebook or something when you're trying to
No, mostly when I was in different locales, I was there to do things.
Are like so back on my home planet, there are well, the planet I grew up on, there are guides to cultural etiquette, because there's only so much that a translation program can tell you. And there are, when two cultures are meeting for the same time, or for the first time, it can be a little bit helpful to have experts on those cultures, like advising each side how to be polite and keep the other one from being insulted. And you're like that, but for people, for like the whole rest of us, except maybe Gerard is really good. I think
Gerard does a much better job with that.
But he's usually in the med bay, right? So when we're actually out and about without him, and he's caught up in one of his projects, like, you're like our cultural advisor for people. You do a really good job.
Thanks.
As long as you're not trying to punch them first.
That usually doesn't happen.
Pat, 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 pat.
Look, I usually punch second. That's my rule. I still punch first. They miss. But
Michael
still.
gets a notification while inside of the Greek space that Nico's trying to get communication.
Oh, I'm getting a message. I'm gonna step out for a little bit, boss.
All right, bite.
Michael like hops off of his back and is like, "Your turn."
I'm
right.
quite a bit bigger than she is.
Yeah, this is the next level.
I was just a rest. He was taking a break.
Oh,
I mean, I've asked Orphea to put a few bears on me as well, but that's a different thing.
Bears, huh?
Yeah, it's a little difficult unless you subdue them first. Their claws just dig into you. And yes, I know the euphemism for another term for bears, but no, that is not the kind of large furry creature Booker has had on top of him.
all right.
He hasn't been wrestling with bears.
Great, you broke Mako.
I'm fine. It's fine.
No, you're not. It's okay. Welcome to my party.
All right. So, Maiko make her way outside giggling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little unusual that Nico asked for like a face-to-face, but he's waiting at the shuttle, which you get to ride one of the. Okay, quick question for if there are dinosaur nerds in our group. What is the name of the dinosaur which has the like bony skull so it can charge things?
Damn it, I knew this one.
I know this one too.
The only one that's going to my mind is the Triceratops.
No.
No, it's like small.
It's
Damn
like
it,
the-
I have
the
I have the Pokemon version instead. It's not helpful.
It's fine. So we're riding out on that kind of dinosaur.
Pachycephalosaurus.
Yes.
Cephalosaurus. Okay, so you're on a Pachy. And Nico, still seems a little like awed by the frequency of dinosaur trips and stuff like that. But he's like, so I may have screwed up a little bit.
Like, how much is a little bit?
He says, so I was trying to surprise for you. He says, since you seem to like everything that grows. He says, I was picking some flowers and some herbs. He says, and things like that from around here. He says to put into your room. Because I thought you might like to have that. He says, well, Chief saw it. He says, and he kind of freaked out. He says, he's been asking to come down here. He says, not Atticus. He says, the Okar Chief.
Right.
He says, and I didn't want to just like bring him down without making sure that it was okay.
I don't see why not. Is there a reason why not?
I didn't know if we were trying to keep all of them, away from this place. I know that everybody just talked about the importance of secrecy, but he kind of went, I don't want to say crazy, just really excited.
He was excited about flowers?
I guess everything. He says, I mean, he's seen the stuff that grows, he says, in our horticulture area. He says, and he recognized these weren't from there.
You want me to go talk to him? I'll go talk to him.
I can fly you back up if you want.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, so when she goes in, to her space, he's definitely like made little planters and gotten like a couple dozen different like species to just decorate her room. They're not all over engineering. It's literally just her room.
That's so sweet.
But and then goes off to, like, go and find the chief. She's actually, like, learned the Okar language at this point, right?
She knows it.
Yeah, and the chief, he's one of the few people that doesn't ask her permission to give her, like, a scooping, lift her up kind of hug. He's also, like, almost 7 feet tall, so it just sort of happens.
And so, yeah, so customary hug when he comes in.
Yeah, complete with shoulder pounding,
Hi.
And
nice to see
he
you
says, and he kind of points to one of the flowers. He says, I thought this was only from our world. He says, it's called a star flower on our planet. It says, and most, if not all of them, had died out. They were symbols of good luck. They were messengers from the gods. He says, and suddenly you had one, and Nico was very strange when I asked where he got it. He says, finally, I got out of him that there is a place where they are growing. Now, I would like to see it.
At this point, Siosa, like, how much is there a sense of, like, secrecy? Like, has, now that, the corporation people have been sort of, like, ousted, and now that we've restored, Jamais to the planetary, like, governance and whatnot, how much of this is there a sense of, like, this place is secret?
For the last conversation with Jamais, there was definitely like there are still elements that aren't going to be trusted. Does that make sense? So, but also an understanding that they're taking custody of it and taking protection of it as part of their responsibilities. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Which means that the overall level of secrecy is now no longer don't tell anyone. It's just make sure that we're only telling people we trust, and that it's part of they're going to be sort of involved in the protection of it.
So Maiko's going to sort of nod and kind of be like, I would love to take you, but it's kind of not my secret to give. And it's not Nico's either, like, don't blame him. But I can take you to the guardian of it, and you can ask permission to see it.
He says, I would be honored. He says, and if there are any challenges this guardian would put before me, my spear is ready to face them.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Mm-hmm. I would just have you know that if it were up to me, I would take you in an instant. It's just not mine to... It's not my garden.
He says, if you have made a covenant, he says, I respect, he says, that you have made it, and I will honor it as my own.
Awesome. Yeah, so, I mean, Maiko is happy to, like, bring, oh god, what is his name? Okar. He's Okar in my head. Chief Okar.
Moni is the name of the chief.
Moni
Okar.
So she's gonna bring him to meet the guardian, meet Orphea. Or at least bring him to the valley and introduce him to Orphea if that's agreeable to Orphea.
Maiko has not had a whole lot of occasion in the society that she comes from of seeing grown men weep openly. That's the experience for Moni the moment he steps outside of the shuttle.
He steps outside, what?
Like when he steps off of the shuttle in the valley, like the very first thing he does is like drop to both of his knees, and you start to see like tears falling down his cheeks.
They're there? Uh,
It takes him a few minutes to like recover to anything like being able to speak. So that
yeah.
makes sense. Like you see him he kind of puts his hands into the grass, you know what I'm saying? At one point, he kind of like clears his eyes enough, and then he sees one of the flowers that he'd been mentioning, you know what I'm saying, just growing in the wild, and it begins again.
So yeah, she's gonna like totally like bend down or kneel down or stand next to him or whatever, depending on how tall he is. And just sort of like, you know, hug him and kind of rub his back. And kind of like pet his hair and like all of those things, like, and just try to be like supportive until he's like ready to talk.
Yeah, when he is like, he just kind of like scoops Mike up and puts her on his shoulder like he did when they were first escaping, you know what I'm saying, and like lets her direct the way to wherever they're going. He says, "It is hard to see how much my world has died," says, "until I see what a living one looks like."
Has that been over the course of generations or over the course of your lifetime?
He says, "When we were found," he says, "we are in one of the last places on our planet left," he says, "that could still sustain life." He says, "But even so, every tree browned." He says, "Every fern," he says, "died." He says, "More often," he says, "we ate mushrooms and mold," he says, "than any living thing."
Oh my god.
He says, "This place," he says, he says, what has become paradise?" He says, "This is as our legends would describe the afterlife."
Well, you're not dead. I want to assure you that I'm pretty sure you're not dead.
He says, "This guardian," he says, "you take me to." He says, "What manner of creature are they?"
And over the course of her conversations with the Okar and such, so they're like pre-tech. They're not. Do they? What level of technology are they?
They're called lost tech, which
Right.
means that like they've lost not only their technology, but the also understanding of how it worked and how to construct it. They were living as tribes people, you know what I'm saying? Spears, bows and arrows,
And
etc.
how adaptable have they been to the reintroduction of technology to them? Like
It
living on the ship.
depends vastly. The the person who is by far the most ahead of the game in that regard is Shinumi, the cook.
Mm-hmm.
She has figured out the entire horticulture lab. She like operates without much need for anything else. Does that make sense? She knows what makes water. She might not know why it makes water. Does that make sense? But she very clearly has figured out everything in the lab and what it does. If there's a technical issue inside the lab, she'll call Maiko. But she also knows enough to know when something is going wrong. Does that make sense?
Right.
She's figured out how to cook with like stovetops instead of just open flame.
And then what about Moni?
Moni is older, and I don't want to say like resistant so much as like he definitely tries to frame things into things he understands. And so when it comes to strongly abstract concepts, he really struggles. Does that make sense? Like
Okay.
he still thinks of Logos as like a god and a spirit that animates all of the drones. Does that make sense? Some of the
Okay.
others have come to understand that he's not quite that. Um,
Okay. So when he asks what manner of creature the guardian is, I think she's going to explain it in a similar fashion to how he understands Logos. Is just like similar to how we have a spirit of our ship. There is a spirit of the grove, and her name is Orphea, and she has been very kind to us. But what are you doing? I'm sorry, I just looked up and Booker was doing a thing. Anyway, she has been very kind to us and very accepting of us. But also I think she's been accepting of us on the understanding that we're going to help her preserve her grove, and that she had few options left. So she may not be, she's benevolent to a point, but don't push her.
Says I would, if he says a spirit protects this place, he says I would happily give my life in service to that spirit.
Whew, okay. Alright then. That's good. Maybe don't lead with that.
He says this is a sacred place.
On that we can agree, actually. I think I agree with that.
He says, and if she would be willing to give me the honor. He says, it would be my honor to protect it. He says, in whatever fashion it would permit.
Well, let's go talk to her and see what she has to say.
So I'm going to kind of flash over quite a bit of it. She quickly grasps that he's lost tech. He has no understanding. You know what I'm saying? And does make multiple attempts to be like, you understand I am not actually a divine being, and I cannot, promise you an afterlife or any such thing. To which he does accept. You think there's a certain amount of like, that's what a god would say.
And is
kind of response from him.
Is Maiko having to translate for them, or is she able to communicate with him directly?
Not for long. Like, she has to translate it first. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But Orphea is picking up the language very quickly.
Okay.
And she becomes very keenly interested in sort of like what's been happening on the planet that he's on, having him describe like the different kinds of death, and you know what I'm saying? It's like not a subject he's willingly talked about. Does that make sense? And Maiko has always been able to tell that it upset him to talk about. And there are times that, he tears up during it and stuff like that, but like she listens compassionately, and then kind of tells him that she needs to make a deliberation, but that she would like to consult with those who have honored her before. And looks to you and says, I would like to speak to you and your crew.
For sure. How long are we until Booker comes out of...
He's about halfway through.
The oven. Okay. Well then, I guess we all need to meet him where he's at. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can Okar, or can Chief Moni, do you mind if he wanders around the valley and, do you mind if he hangs out?
I will make sure none of the predators bring harm to him.
Okay. Cool.
Please instruct him not to antagonize anything with sharp teeth.
You don't bait the wildlife. Please.
He says, nice. I will hunt nothing without the permission.
Yeah, be nice. Just sniff the flower. Don't take anything, but like maybe smell the flowers while you're here.
This is just a suggestion from Booker that can't exactly hear it. Maybe have a dinosaur with a star shape on it. Lead the Okar around, should he need to be coming back.
I'm missing the reference then.
No, the star is literally because he saw the star flowers.
Oh, good.
That's literally the entire idea behind it.
One being marked.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't have any such method on hand, but I do have only a single Gigantosaurus.
A babysitter.
I mean, I got a can of spray paint, but potato, potato.
Anyway, she says, having heard the plight of the Okar, she says, I would be willing to have them come and settle here.
The chief.
Oh.
Sorry, the chief seems interested in this, Maiko.
Yeah. I've never seen him so moved by anything. Admittedly, I haven't known him that long, but it was pretty much a sight to behold.
Then I would like to speak with the Okaran chief once I am of a body again.
And bring him here. Says Arvia.
Or bring him here.
Would that blow his mind? I feel like...
Yeah.
That's kind of why I suggested the first thing first.
And Orvia kind of like closes her eyes and like the entire Greek world around kind of like shifts and becomes almost identical to the interior of her area. So it makes sense. She's basically turned it into like a virtual landscape that copies the actual physical landscape outside of it.
And we've phoned Gerard into this, right, Girard?
Mm-hmm.
Similar to the way that you made the red pandas and some of the llamas before as merely holograms, would it be possible for me to come out and speak to Moni in such a manner?
I could do this, yes. The world kind of like snaps back to the Greek.
Then I think that would be the easiest way.
There may be another option.
And what would that be, Gerard?
Their society is very ritualistic, and presenting it, the method of getting in, not so much in terms of science, but of ritual, might help him to adapt to the stimuli.
All right.
I just want him to be able to have a chat without having his mind completely blown. That's pretty much all I'm after.
Yeah.
Let's not hurt anyone.
Whatever you feel would be the easiest way to do this.
I think the easiest way would be to summon me into the room.
Then I will tell him that we are bringing your spirit to converse with him.
That would be the wisest course of action, I believe. And hopefully the least mind-blowing.
We might have to explain that he's undergoing some sort of healing ritual or something so that the chief doesn't think that Captain Booker is dead.
No.
Yeah.
That would be...
The explanation she settles with when she turns back to the chief is his spirit is separate from his body, but I will be returning it to it once he has finished healing. And he kind of like, he seems impressed, but not like, it doesn't like break his worldview to think about it that way.
It's probably just like a god.
She's not doing anything that's gonna like convince him that she's not a god. You know what I'm saying? Like, he definitely already has like the look of a man who's kind of like met a god face to face. And whether he's allowed to serve that god is now being debated. So
Resigned to it.
A whole new religion is born in this moment.
What was that?
sorry, can you say that again?
A whole new religion is born in this moment.
So Moni kind of, he definitely like bows his head when he sees the Booker spirit appearing.
Moni, there is no need for any more respect than you have already shown me.
Then he says, consider it a respect just for the spirit world you inhabit.
I can take that. So, Moni, from my understanding is that you wish to remain here.
You says it's not. He says all that I wish. He says, but he says if this can be, he says the fate of the Okar tribe. He says I will die a happy chief.
I believe the decision for each of your tribesmen should be allowed to be made by themselves.
Yeah.
I believe those that wish to remain with us, aboard the Proxima Icarus, should be permitted to do so, and the ones that wish to be here with you among this incredible place should also have the option to do so. But I do not wish to force this on anyone.
Orphea interjects. She says, I will also have rules that I will require of you. Says, first, says, the technology that you and your people possess now, she says, is all that I wish for them to possess. She says, I do not want them doing more, she says, than living off of the land. She says, living from season to season. She says, building simple structures. She says, I do not want to have my valley torn down to make a home for them. She says, but rather that they learn to live among it. She says, and those who do not wish to or cannot must leave. She says, if they change their minds, they may return. She says, but while they live here, they must respect that rule. And Moni looks between Booker and between Orphea. Says, I will never, says, coerce any of my people into taking a course that does not fit for them. Says, this is paradise. He says, and I will tell them of that, and that we have been invited to live there. And says, and the rules, he says, for living there.
That would be good.
He says, but there is one other thing still upon my mind. He says, that is not, he says, the fate of my people. He says, my tribe. He says, but the other tribes still living upon my planet. He says, who grow closer and closer to death with each passing day.
Oh God, they left people alive on there?
He says, we were just one tribe taken by the slavers. He says, there were tens of thousands of us. He says, still surviving on the planet.
Oh, fuck.
If we can, we will do what we can to save these people. But I believe that is all I can promise. For to die in a world that is not... For to die in a world that is moving past you is not a fate any man should live.
Oh.
I mean, the world is actively killing them. There's no two ways about it.
And Orphea says, I can heal them once they have arrived.
Then that would be good. But Moni, I do wish to say one thing before you would transfer your way to paradise. You have been an invaluable member of our crew, and you have been a great friend to all of us. We will be sad to see you go, but we will be happy that you are here and safe.
That was said. He says, I know there is at least one member of the tribe, he says, that will be remaining. He says, and I think, he says, we should honor her choice, he says, by, he says, officially marrying our tribes together before they go. And says, Shinumi has not yet told Atlas, he says, but I know for certain, he says, that she is with his child.
Okay, damn it, I have to conduct a marriage ceremony now.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, let's get Atlas down here.
Orphea kind of smiles. She says, I would be delighted to host it here.
Thank you.
For you and any of the crew of your ship that would like to join.
If we can, we should try to get the entire ship down, with leaving as few people to continue operating the Proxima as feasible.
Like, just gonna throw it out there. Like, if you go to a wedding without Jamae, she might have some words.
Yeah, he's still not thinking about that at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
That is
Booker
not on-
mentions that you're bringing Jamae. Because he's also planning to invite any of the people that were very important in this, in their journey towards this, to come with them. Although that's pretty much just Jamae, but still.
I'm pretty sure that like if Maiko like sends Jamae a text message that's just like wedding smiley face, like wedding question mark smiley face, and sends
Her
like
response is like, we've only
coordinate-
been dating like 2 weeks.
send some like coordinates, and then like, you want to be there?
Yeah, the response back is like, we've only been dating like 2 weeks.
Gosh, I'm trying to decide if Maiko would go like 100% troll on it and just be like, send again like wedding smiley face. And I think that's what she would do.
Booker would want to message, but has no thumbs in which to message.
White has no
Maiko.
clue this is happening.
It's just Maiko.
Jamae kind of like ... and like
Smiley
yeah, there's
face.
just like a ... that comes through, and then like if you are fucking with me ...
And then just more smiley faces. Like 3 smiley emojis.
At what point does Bite get a message?
Booker is definitely talking to Gerard, going, "Can you message Jamae very briefly?"
Can you do these things? Can you do these things? And meanwhile, Maiko is just wreaking havoc.
Yeah. Would you be so kind as to send Jamae a message? You or Bite. I don't have the thumbs in which to send messages.
Orphea opens up like it's like several hours later, but Orphea opens up like a direct communication portal and whatnot. And you see like Jamae looks like she's undergoing a dress fitting.
Maiko, what did you do?
Hello. What is your title at this point? I wish to give
Chancellor?
it properly.
Is it Chancellor?
It's Chancellor.
Hello, Chancellor Jamae. One of
She
my
says,
crew is...
She says, Chancellor isn't necessary. I don't open communication portals while I'm in my underwear. She says to people I'm not comfortable with.
Booker is trying to maintain eye contact as best as possible.
Oh no.
He's just going, yeah, one of my crew is getting married, and you're invited to the ceremony.
Oh my God.
Y'all.
Maiko is constitutionally unable to stop giggling for the next like 5 years.
Yeah, and she's like, put Mike on the screen.
Yeah, and just Booker points in her general direction.
Jamae kind of like, I don't know how, and I don't know when. She says, but I will be getting you back.
You better? Because this is amazing!
Booker is still staying on target.
She clicks out after that.
Maiko!
I just asked her if she wanted to go to a wedding.
you do realize we're kind of jumping the gun on this. The crewman, as far as I'm aware, hasn't even been advised that there is a wedding proposal, let alone
Yeah.
accept.
Nico's like,
Yes.
on it.
Thank you, Nico.
Um,
I don't imagine he's going to have a giant argument with mother of his child, but there could be.
just
All right.
as you requested that the chieftain,
Ah, good cyber juice.
just as you requested that the chieftain give all of his people the right to make their choices. We can't.
No,
This crewman will accept the proposal.
I don't know if you've seen an Okar version of Shotgun Wedding before. But
I don't believe any of us have.
I have not. I don't, it's just probably not going to be a problem, but just FYI.
Is that a longbow wedding?
Just
No, I believe it's a year tip.
Miko standing over them Moni, sorry, is standing over them just like glowering.
Monica's like,
Paternalistically.
I need to return with Nico and speak to the Okar and also prepare for this.
While I understand that there may be some affection between these two individuals, it is still their choices to make.
I fully agree. And worst case scenario, this wedding turns into a grand feast.
At least you know Jamais will be dressed up for it.
Yep. Yep, definitely not picturing what we just saw.
Why did you let Michael anywhere near your phone?
I didn't. She messaged on her own.
Okay, time to go see the Rolo. Bye!
Michael, when we get back to the ship, you and I are going to have a discussion about boundaries.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So, moving
I
on.
haven't even.
The wedding plans are underway. Jamais shoots a couple pics of Mike that are just like, I'm so sorry.
Bite is just too flustered to be like, to say anything back.
And the only message you get after that is just like a picture of Jamais blowing a kiss.
Sends a heart emoji back. That's the most she's probably gone in 2 weeks.
That's so sweet.
As the process gets closer and closer for Booker to come out of the upgrade, there is another communication. This time, Nico sends a warning. He's coming in not just with he's coming in with Atticus, and they're hoping to talk to Booker. It's Atticus's reaction to the valley is a night and day different from Moni's. He's like a guy used to tech, to dead asteroids, to ships, so he just tries to avoid stepping on anything, including grass. There's not really much way to do that.
Hover boots activated.
He definitely looks fairly uncomfortable by the time that he's arrived. And the presence of Orphea, he's gotten a little bit used to logos. Orphea just has a whole different vibe. The fact that the Okar people are willing to worship her, it's probably not going to change much about her personality. And Atticus is perfectly happy to go into the virtual space to speak with you. A little bit puzzled by it, Booker's been kind of dealing with the fact that you're having actual physical sensations again that aren't just virtual ones. You know what I'm saying? So there's a little bit of restlessness going on by this point. You're 2 days or so from the point where you're going to be back in the world, and your body feels like you've been sitting for a week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Epic pins and needles.
Atticus kind of he has a couple questions about how everything's feeling, how you're doing his best to be polite, but he definitely has something in his mind.
So, is this, and Booker kind of cuts a bit to the chase a bit with the, is this about the arrangement we made previously?
He says, sorta. He says, I got a modification in mind. He says, I got along just great with Boney. He says, him and his people, he says, couldn't meet nicer people if I wanted to. He says, there was some friction at first. He says, the proposal I got in mind, he says, is to take a couple crew, he says, and start ferrying people from his planet to here. He says, you got the mining ship, it's all shielded, it's got its own jump drive. He says, we can probably pick up some ore and some scrap along the way. The whole place is filled with salvage.
You want to help Moni and his people? And the other tribes?
I do.
Atticus, that would be wonderful.
He says,
I would like to warn you that they're not as used to us as the Okara are.
well, he says, we'll get a few Okara there. He says, speak the language. He says, but, I mean, you're talking, he says, about spending the rest of my life, he says, chipping iron ore out of asteroids. He says, or spending the rest of my life, he says, literally saving people's lives. It's not a hard call.
No, I can't imagine it would be.
He says, a mining ship, he says, it lets take a lot of people at once. He says, from what I understand, he says, taking more than one tribe at a time, he says, is probably a good way to get some conflict. He says, but it's going to be different when they get here. Resources aren't exactly scarce.
No. Would you... How many of you want to go?
He says, well, Atlas is definitely staying.
That is not
He says,
surprising.
There ain't a force on Earth, he says, that's going to get Teddy going into that system again.
All right.
He says, so it's probably going to be Bastion, he says, Tobias says, and he says, Nico will be staying on with you, he says, and so will Teddy and Atlas.
Well then. I'll do it a bit more officially, come the actual day of the grand ceremony. But, a little unofficially, I hereby grant you leave of the ship the Proxima Icarus to do as you wish and to help as many people as you can. It has been an honor, Captain.
Says, it's been a privilege, Captain. And he, extends a hand since you're all in the virtual space together.
Oh, yeah, I was assuming that a hand was already being shook.
Yeah.
Sorry. My brain didn't say the thing that should have been said.
It's all right. It's all right. Says, well, it says you and everybody else, he says, is always welcome aboard the Pacifier.
And I'd like you to know the same privilege is extended to the Proxima Icarus.
I need to talk to Maiko, he says, before we go.
Absolutely.
Am I in trouble?
When did you get here?
Oh, am I not there? I'm sorry.
She was asleep in the virtual world.
I forgot that we made that pack of Rolos over there. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, I'll wander off here. I've got some gladiators to fight.
And he goes over and it's down next to Maiko. He says, I just needed to thank you, he says, for making this place a home for us. I know we all been kind of living out of engineering.
I, 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 I think the fact that it is home has made it home for you guys.
He says, home is about a welcome. Says he always made us feel welcome. He says, Booker, he says he's worried about how well the ship is doing. He says, got his eye on the ball. He says, Bite's a little shy. He says, but he says, you're always there. He says, chat. He says, with whoever says needed an ear. He says, just hear a voice. He says, you actually made Tobias into a half-decent engineer. He says, not that I'm willing to trust my life in his hands.
Oh man, I am going to miss you guys.
He says, we'll be doing good work. He says, and we'll see you soon.
For sure. Really proud of you guys.
Take good care of my people.
For sure. Yeah, of course.
All right. He kind of like stands back and salutes. He's like, till next time, Chief.
She's just gonna give him a hug.
He accepts it.
He just gets a hug. And like Maiko's definitely kind of emotional. Like she's not like crying, but she is definitely like she's got the heart on her sleeve thing going on where she's just like, I'm gonna miss you guys so much. And then like bouncing back and forth between that and like wildly happy.
Yeah. Which is gonna roll right into a wedding 2 days
exactly. It's just a very emotional time for Maiko. She's got some very big emotions to go into her tiny body.
So Gerard, as Booker is coming out, one of the things that you have learned about the entity known as Orphea is that she is a queen of underselling things. Her idea of slight improvements, it's hard to quantify the ways in which, like, all of Booker's vitals are showing improvement. Does that make sense? Because I think, Booker, you already did your roles, right? So you kind of know that you're stronger, and but there's also things like just the rate at which his body coagulates and recovers from blood loss, like responds to injury, reflexes, response times. They're so measurably improved that you definitely have the impression that Orphea, if she has similar improvements in mind for everybody else, she's wildly underselling the scale. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, Doc, am I full of spiders?
If you would describe to everybody first, Booker, like the differences in your character's appearance.
As Booker sits up, his eyes are no longer the kind of hawk yellow that they used to be. As he looks at and his hair isn't the same tawny brown color. He looks a little bigger and a little tougher than he used to. His musculature is more defined, and his hair is orange. He's a redhead. Alongside with the fact that his eyes also gleam a brilliant red sheen. As the arm is being put back on, the red, almost race car sort of red, looks very striking to the rest of him. Trying to think how else to describe him.
Do you have like an updated Hero Forge or anything?
I do. I will be posting that as well.
I knew it.
Well, it made sense to make one. But Booker is also, for something that you don't see him do a lot before, he's smiling and he looks healthy. And you can see that he's got that, and you notice only because it's not there anymore. He had a little twitch before in his eyes as he was trying to deal with all the massive amounts of pain his body was going through. That's just not there anymore. And that is how Booker looks. And he opens his mouth, and the first things he says is, "So, Doc, is my body full of spiders?"
It's definitely full of something. I'm still running comparison scans, but there are improvement markers all over the place.
Yeah. It's a little odd not to have any scars. Got so used to them. He also said things. The one I used to have here, and he points to a completely clear patch of skin that would have used to have a bullet hole. That was the time that we, you know, that was the time that we saved the Okar people, and I got shot through the system several times.
Well, you've been rewritten on the genetic level from the ground up.
Orpheus says, I think the thing that your companions are more concerned about is, do you still feel like yourself?
I feel better. I feel healthy and alive. I feel like I'm not dying for the first time in years.
You look like you're in a better mood than I've ever seen you.
That may have something to do with the pain, but yeah. No, I'm still Booker, though. Just more handsome than before.
Well, then, Micah, fight. The decision to go through the process is yours. I will monitor it as I did from Booker as well.
Gerard, do you want to go through your own process? Are you interested?
The thought of this type of immortality is intriguing and frightening at the same time. But my concern right now is for both of yours' safety.
I think what Gerard is trying to say is he'll go in last. If at all. And I think what Maiko and Bite want to know is if this is an all for one or if this is an all for one and one for all sort of deal.
I'm glad I'm going through the process, yes.
I'm in.
Bite?
Bite seems to be messaging Jamae right now.
I'm in after the wedding.
We don't know when the wedding is yet.
Isn't it
I thought it was
like
today.
2 days?
Yeah, I was planning that it was going to be like literally a day or two later.
So
Wedding first, then.
I've been planning my officiant speech all last week.
I had talked about that I was probably going to have to end this one early because I do have to get to the airport and fly today. So the wedding, I expect, even though I expect to go through it fairly quickly, I do expect it to probably take a little bit. You know what I'm saying? There's crew saying goodbye and stuff like that. We didn't get into much of any of the actual stuff as far as like, you know, the setting up of the faction and whatnot, and I'm actually honestly okay with it. So
you want to end here is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think with having the wedding and then kind of having everybody going through their own, 2-week cycles and stuff like that, I would like, while I appreciate that Gerard wants to monitor over everybody, would he be willing to like monitor everyone while undergoing the process himself, since he's seen the degree to which Booker's intelligence can remain autonomous, and he'd still be able to have access to all of the same readings and everything.
Actually feels a little faster.
That depends on something, because my hearing being what it is, which two people are getting married?
It's Atlas and Shinumi aboard the ship.
Okay.
They're crew members.
What is the decision of Ade on returning, staying here with her people, or staying aboard the ship?
She's going to stay aboard the ship.
In that case, I will be willing to go through the process at the same time, providing that she monitors the process herself.
Yeah, she's absolutely willing to do. And given her status as like a lost soul, she might be interested in seeing if the same offer would be extended.
What same offer?
Since Ade is a masculine soul inside of a feminine body.
Oh.
There's no harm in asking Arceus.
So, so a few things that are going to be happening as a result of that. So the Pasiphae, the mining ship, is going to be disengaging and now running its own mission consistently, bringing as many people as possible from the dying planet. A question is, Byte had retrieved the information about the prion. I didn't know if Byte was intending to turn that information over to Orpheus or not.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. At the end of Booker's time inside of the body exchange space, Orphea says, "This information will be of most use to Gerard, but I wanted you to know that I have synthesized an antidote."
That's fantastic.
Says, "This is for the disease that affects the planet Ramesses."
We should try to get it to them as soon as we can.
But that will be underway, and it's also something you potentially hand off to Atticus, since there are some things that I'm like totally willing to have them just be available for. It's like, I don't really have an adventure plan related to this, but it does represent potential expansions of like your base of influence and everything like that as you progress into like faction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I understand that there's a method that we can use this to, if we were to say sell it for material cost plus 15%, we would be making a small profit.
The actual, yeah, you could definitely do that. What they consider to be wealth is going to be different than most of the rest, because they're also like a very pre-tech, or not pre-tech, but like they're tier 2 technology, which equates to like medieval era.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, but there should be resources available that we can salvage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gold is still gold. Still good for circuitry.
So, that's a good place for us to call it. Would you guys like to do your outros and let everybody know where to find you? We can start with Byte.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, my name is Sarah. I've been playing Byte. You can find me over at Tangor Productions, where I am working on a super cool project with the Scarred Adventurer called Bravely Broken. Oh, and you can also find me here, I have to put these up, on Tuesday as Magic, and on Thursday where I run Deviant Futures.
The kitty is insistent on being part of the show.
That leads into me real quick. I do the same thing Sarah does. Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Tankor Productions doesn't have its own Twitch, right? Do you need me to shout
It
one
does
out?
not.
We do not have a Twitch yet.
Okay.
If that is something we decide to do in the future, we might, but
I mean, I just imagine, I'm just imagining some very weird video game playthroughs like Among Us, Bravely Among Us, and then you just have Bravely in front of any game that you do. I don't know, I'm just going crazy.
we can talk about it later.
I don't imagine doing that as a good idea, but still,
I'm just making sure I'm not missing a shout out.
no.
I'll go next. I'm Blaze of Gloriosa, who has been playing your friendly neighborhood Maiko Mischief Maker. I'm gonna be riding that high for weeks. I sometimes stream on my own channel, which I'll shout out, but it's also Blaze of Gloriosa. Wow, I haven't really been active in chat today.
That's because you've been making Bites life hard.
I have.
Yes.
Nothing
Which
wrong
we all
with that.
appreciate.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm also here.
You give yourself a shout out instead of putting in the your Twitch.
I thought I gave myself a shout out.
You know, is that also your Twitch?
Yeah, that is.
Then I
Oh.
think that's fine.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that you could do that.
Yeah. I'm also found on usually Mondays and Wednesdays here. For our Buffy game and for our Sudden Heroes game. This week I'm taking a bit of a hiatus because it's Hell Week. It's my last week at my job, and it's going to be very draining. And I believe that's everything for me.
Well, that leaves me. I'm Shadow, also known as the True Shadowmancer. I play Gerard St. Germain here. And Thursday nights, you can find me in Deviant Futures as one of the Chaos Gremlins, known as Woodja.
Thursdays
Yes.
are the
Awesome.
greatest Chaos Gremlins.
Yeah.
So come enjoy that. You can also find me hanging out in the Dirty 20 Discord, as well as my own Discord, Desperate Dice Rollers, which can be found in the chat. Come on by, say hi, hang out, meet new people, and one of these days when I get more free time and another game's opens, who knows? You may find me in another game. So
Great.
that leads us back to you there, Chief.
Thank you, Siosa.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you guys for coming and playing, and thank you to everybody who came out and watched us. Glad everyone here is enjoying the campaign. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash that like and subscribe subscribe button. Don't smash your subscribe buddy.
Unless
It
they're
can be
into
fun,
it.
though.
I mean,
Unless they're
with
into it.
consent, it's fine.
Yeah.
Definitely sacrifice your tech ducks.
All right. Everyone, please be nice to one another, and we'll see you next week.
Night, y'all.